welcome and thank you for coming to the Talk of Cafe. Tonight we've got two amazing guests, Chris and Kat. And first we'll hear from Chris Greenan, who is the creator and one of the directors of the TransAlba race. And after a brief intermission, we'll hear from Kat McGill, who might be known to a lot of us as a local gravel and hills rider, but she's got an amazing breadth of experience as a cycle tourer and ultra racer. So please welcome our first guest, Chris Greenan.
Thank you.
Chris was born in Edinburgh and raised in Muscat in Oman. He returned to Scotland to do his hires, followed by attending the University of Dundee. Since then, he's lived and worked in California and Dubai, but is now settled in Edinburgh, where he's mostly been working in hospitality for companies like Montpelier's The Ivy Collection and Gordon Ramsay. Chris had a decent amateur football career, captaining Dundee University men's team, but after many football-related injuries, the boots were hung up and his love of cycling was reignited. In his cycling adventures, Chris has done mostly touring and bikepacking, but the most notable highlight is his finish on the Trans-America bike race in 2018. After coming back from the Trans-America, Chris was inspired to create an ultra-endurance race here in Scotland. Together with his friend Jack Driver, they created TransAlba, and in October of the same year, they opened registration for the first edition to run in summer 2019. Since we have the creator of TransAlba right here, I'm not going to bore you with too many details, but I will say the event is renowned for its scenery and big climbs. And it also has a reputation for terrible, or you can just call it Scottish, weather, and perhaps because it coincides with the summer school holidays. TransAlba starts in Edinburgh, so if you haven't done it yet, there is really no excuse. And I can see a few former participants in the audience, and I'm not going to name them so you know which ones they are. So it's Callum, it's Jack, it's Neil. Anyone else? No, okay. So you should definitely hustle them with your questions later. And you can also grab an autograph when you are there. And by the way, if you're wondering why the finish line is in South Queensferry, there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. Chris currently lives just around the corner from the finish line with his wife Paula, 5-year-old Alexander, and their newborn Ellie. So it makes it easier for him to provide a personalized concierge service as the finishers glide or limp in. Okay, now let's hear from Chris.
Thank you so much. A very kind introduction. I was expecting you to say, oh, this is the guy that made me go 1,000 miles around Scotland, and it was absolutely miserable. So very, very kind. So it's a pleasure to be here. We don't often get to do these things. We're a very, very small race and a really small event that most of you in this room probably haven't even heard of us. Stick your hand up if you have heard of us. There's a few. Okay, that's not bad. Okay. Is it just because you booked this talk and you're here to see Kat McGill? I won't hold it against you. Yes, so TransAlba race, something I'm extremely passionate about, and started it with this chap here. This fun-time guy is Jack Driver and is my partner, and I would be doing him a massive disservice if I didn't introduce him first to you. When I talk about TransAlba and I say I and we, he is very much at the forefront of what we do, and he's very much involved in everything. Unfortunately, he's in New Zealand, so he can't be here tonight. And unfortunately for you, he's the funny one, so you're stuck with me and my dulcet tones for the next 30 to 40 minutes. So Jack is responsible for most of our amazing images of TransAlba and our socials and all the bits and pieces on our website. When I came to him with the idea, he simply said yes, and that was it. And we've had a brilliant partnership since then. Well, before we can get to the best mascot in the business and our amazing riders, like this lovely lady here, we need to rewind to 2016 2017, my memory's not too great. Fly Away Little Bird. That's good podcast material, isn't it? Yeah, they don't know. And I booked to do a number of events in the Edinburgh Festival of Cycling. And it was 2016, 2017. You might be able to correct me, actually. And they put on 16, thank you, Inspired to Ride. Hands up, anybody who's seen this movie? Oh, very few. It's worth seeing. And I have to say thank you, because you quite literally inspired me to go and do the Transamerica bike race. So well done. Inspired to Ride's a movie about the inaugural Transamerica bike race, which is a self-supported race, 4,500 miles from the west coast of America to the east coast. So starting in Astoria, Oregon, and working its way to Virginia on the east coast. Was sitting in the screening, and one of the riders, Juliana, was there, and I've just blown away. And I came home that evening and I told my wife, Paula, I was like, look, I'm doing this race. There's no questions asked. Now, she was kind of like, are you though? Are you though? And, well, I, like any maniac, I quit my job and I trained for 6 months solid. And now I'm not, I didn't have any experience in long distance riding before I entered this. I had a mediocre amateur football career, and the longest cycle I'd done was around 80 miles, okay? So I hadn't even hit a ton. So after quitting my job, I decided, right, 6 months, I can smash it and get myself ready. So if I wasn't outside riding my bike, I was on my indoor trainer riding on Zwift. If I wasn't riding or racing on Zwift, I was doing yoga, I was doing core. If I wasn't training, I was reading, I was planning, I was looking into every single bit of the Transamerica bike race. The route, sleep systems, kit. And in 2018, there wasn't the abundance of kit that was on the market today. I think I got the very first edition of Apidura bags, and they worked a treat. And I was having to pick and choose the information I could find. So insert training montage here. That was 6 months there. And I flew to Portland with my bike, Sparkle Horse. That's my bike's name. She's a goddamn hero. We flew to Portland, cycled 100 miles to Astoria, and we went and did the Transamerica bike race. I rode it in 30 days total, which was about 8 days over what I wanted to do. I ended up 5 days off the bike, injury in Colorado where I had a left leg that was just swollen. It just looked like a hot dog. And I had about 55 hours there. I lost a day to a broken shifter and a day to a broken chain in Missouri. And roughly averaged about 185 miles a day. My biggest day being a 235 miler, loads of climbing. And I kind of sat in that middle pack, which is kind of the fun zone, where you get to see lots of people. There's loads of people passing you, you're passing them. If you'll indulge me, I'm going to share 3 pictures from that ride. And I didn't know it then, but these 3 pictures very much informed what I was going to do with TransAlba when I came home. The first one is in Colorado, and it's the highest point of the race, which is about 12,000 feet. And this was a bit of an iconic moment for me because it's when all the cold weather is away and you descend into sea level. And we'd just spent the night in Breckenridge with a couple who found myself and another rider on the road, and they were like, oh, we've been tracking you guys for miles. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, come and stay in our house. So you're so tired that you're just like, yeah, okay, strangers, cool. Let's do it. I'm easy. And we got the best night ever. We stayed in this. We got 2 amazing double beds for myself and Gately. We sat in their hot tub drinking whiskey until about 1 or 2 in the morning, which I regretted the next day. But I've still got a big smile on my face there, so I wasn't suffering too bad. The next picture isn't too far off in terms of the timeline from that night in Colorado. I had descended into Pueblo where it's sea level, so it's roasting. So you're kind of on these big, long descents, and every now and again you're stripping off a layer, stripping off a layer, stripping off a layer. And you get to a post office there, and you ship all your cold weather gear back to Scotland, because you don't need it anymore, right? You just don't need it. So anyway, fast forward a couple of days, and my aero bars and my Garmin's flashing red. I'm like, oh, I've never seen that before. Severe weather warning. I was like, cool. So I look up, and it's like these big planes. So you can see everything rolling in. And I was like, oh, yeah, that big black cloud just coming in. Wind's picking up. And I was kind of working out the wind direction. And I can see the guy I was riding with at the time, Gately's, a little bit further up the road, and he takes a big right turn. And it's probably half a mile up the road, and you're like, okay, cool. He seems to be flying. He's going pretty fast. Anyway, by the time I hit the corner, the wind is just a blockhead wind. It's in my face. It took me probably 3 hours to cover 3 miles. And eventually I roll into this little town that is just... There's nothing there. There was a Mountain Dew vending machine and one that did Cheetos, and that was going to be my dinner for the evening. So I get my bivvy bag out and my down jacket, and that's all I have left of my kind of winter gear and my sleep system. So I'm sleeping on a hard floor there in a plastic bag with all my cycling gear on. My cycling shoes are still on, and it was just a really miserable night. You'll probably see that there's actually not a roof there as well. So it was just pissing down on me by the end of the night. I wanted to absolutely have and extract every moment out of that race, and whether it was, the endless nights of bivvying, when it could have been easy to go and get a hotel, the riding almost became secondary to the friendships made with Gately, or the hardships or the adventure, and it was just another moment that really summed up what I wanted to be into TransAlba. Maybe not the miserable part, but I wanted people to experience absolutely everything along the journey, and we were never going to spoon feed adventure into somebody and kind of give them a crib sheet all the way around Scotland. They've got to have these moments. I thought that it was really important. The last picture is this chap Gately with his just his meat all hanging out in this picture. This was the last day of TransAm, and we had about 100 miles to do, so it was a relatively easy day with the wind behind us, and we're just cruising into the finish line. I spent a lot of time with this chap, on and off. I would drop him on the big climbing days. He would blast past me on the fast flat days. I would ride a lot longer than him. He would ride shorter but a lot faster. So we end up spending quite a bit of time together. And fast forward to TransAlba 1, there was a chap called Tim, and he had this quote, and he was like, it's maybe not the route, it's maybe not the scenery, but it's the people that make it. And I absolutely knew exactly what he meant by the time I got to the first TransAlba. I was like, the people made it for me. I was very lucky to have all these experiences, meet these amazing people on the journey. And that was another point for TransAlba where we thought, right, we need to make it very personal. We need to make sure that, because there are riders that do these events and they don't enjoy themselves and they don't see another person. They don't have a cool picture of them riding their bike. And we're sitting there going, like, you should have that out of this event. You can't just ride 4,000 miles, get to the finish, no one's there to meet you, and you just go home, right? As I said at the time, I didn't know that these bits would influence TransAlba, but they all did, and they all went into it. I came home to Scotland and TransAlba was born. Just like that. Well, the idea anyway. There wasn't really anything of its type in Scotland at the time. Certainly not a road-based ultra-endurance, bike-packing, cycling adventure, if you want to call it a race or a ride or a tour. So I set out to design a route with Jack, and in my mind I needed to hit that 1,000-mile mark. I kind of considered that 1,000 miles needed to be the mark for that kind of ultra-endurance feel. I felt that it was almost still entry to that kind of level of the sport. But if we were maybe 2 out of 5 stars for kind of distance, we wanted to be 5 out of 5 for the terrain. This race is absolutely relentless, and I'm sure you can attest to, I take you up every single hill I've found in Scotland. So the route looks a little bit like this. This is 2024's edition. But our thinking was, if we have this amazing route, we already have such an amazing country, we combine it with a brilliant team, which we do, freeze frame, we can put on a brilliant event that people will want to come back to and back to and back to. The DNA of the route hasn't changed very much over the years, and in the first year we went clockwise, where in the last 3 years we've gone, we went anti-clockwise the first year, and the last 3 years we've gone clockwise. We made sure to start it and finish it in Edinburgh. It was really important that riders could come and drop their stuff in one location and then return to that location. They've got no excuse. They've got to come back to Edinburgh. So there's no bailing out halfway around. You've got to still get back to Edinburgh to collect your bag, right? We wanted to put some real iconic locations in, so some beautiful roads and some of my favourite roads. We wanted to include areas like the Borders, the Trossachs, the Cairngorms, the Highlands and Islands, this is how it kind of started. And I went away and rode this route, supported, not self-supported, and I did it just under 6 days, and that was with a family member handing me drinks and juice. I'm riding a 7-kilogram bike, whereas these guys come in fully laden with their kit, and it was a brutal route, but I stood by it, and I was like, people have got to really earn the finish. So I've got the next part here is a trailer that we built for 2024's entries. It comes from 2023's race, and hopefully it'll give you a little bit of feel of what we're about. So, work. Yay. For the purposes of the podcast, there's a rider there. There's 2 riders coming up. No, just one, sorry. This is also good podcast material, isn't it?
Okay, so the website is transalba.com. You can go and sign up now.
Yeah. That's me doing a skid.
Cars, I make rich look rich, take a breath, baby, I'm not going home with y'all. On, take my body in glitter. Platforms, because all the boys want a picture. Foreign cars, I make
Here she is. That's a steep hill, that was. There she is again. ready.
Done.
Well done, mate. How you feeling?
Fine.
Fine?
It was hard.
That last minute moment there was you just like, that was hard. He's not wrong. That's a little taster of our event, and do we just feel that it encapsulates everything we're about. We fall in line with most self-supported races of the type. We do have some rules. We fall in line with things like, no drafting other competitors unless you're in a pair. You can draft each other. No support vehicles, things like that. But where we separate ourselves is that we try not to take it ourselves too seriously. We're not going to punish you if you go off track and it's 4 mile, you skip 4 miles of the route because you've gone to get a McDonald's, or your hotel's off route and you skip 3 miles getting back onto it. It's just not important to us. It's already hard enough. We don't need to make it harder by having these very fine margins when it comes to this sort of riding. We, as I say, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We try not to, we're not authorities in the sport, so we try to guide our riders and we try to help them be successful. But I mean, I might have finished TransAlba, but I'm still figuring out how to race. I'm kind of somewhere between an aggressive tourer and a gentle racer, somewhere in between there. I have brilliant days and bad days. So we guide and we try to set our riders up for success by telling them, like, this is hard, it's going to be really challenging. You're going to have horrible days and it's wet and it's cold. But where we differentiate ourselves is we also kind of say that it's 99% self-supported and 1% supported. So our 1% support might come in the form of us handing gels and bananas, and it's usually the Haribo in my bag that goes down the best. Everyone knows by the end of the race that I've got all the good stuff in my musette, so they know where to come. But although by the last few days all the good stuff's gone, so it's kind of down to bananas, and they're like, I can't have one more banana. But it might come in the form of us dancing at the side of the road to Taylor Swift. So these sweet, sexy, seductive moves are a sight to behold. And if it doesn't motivate you to go a little bit faster, nothing will. So it can even come in the form of us handing our own snacks out the side of the car. This is Damo having some flaming hot Cheetos, which he regretted about half an hour later when he caught up with us and was like, I've just finished both my bidons, I don't have any water left. And I was like, yeah, you're not wrong, that was a mistake on your part. We might even be found, like TransAlba 1, racing around Scotland trying to deliver charging cables, or removing a tyre off my bike in the van to give to a rider who had like the worst tyres going in, and I told him he would puncture, and he punctured 10 times in a day, and I was like, look, just take a tyre. We are not super serious on the rules. We just want people to finish, and it's already tough enough. So the story behind the charging cables was actually partly our fault. In year one, we had a tracking company that sent us trackers with a bit of a unique charging cable that nobody carried. And I was like, did you send us cables? And they're like, nah. I was like, the battery's going to run out over 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, depending how long people are going to be. And they're like, you can just get them off Amazon. So registration day, I'm busy trying to buy these, like 80 of these cables, get them delivered further up north into the route. And then we have to busy chasing people like Nikki Shaw, who's lightning quick in a little transit van to deliver one cable, and then you discover she's already got that one, and she's so fast she's going to finish before she needs to charge her one anyway. So you're like, sweet Nikki, but it's nice to catch up. Simply, we just want our riders to be successful. And yeah, we know that hip flask at the end is hard earned. So for small infringements, we don't care. And you know, by the end of it, nobody really cares if you were 10 days or 4 days. They just care if you finished. So you've probably got a bit of a feel of a race now. What I'll go on to talk about is that you do get the rider perspective quite often in these races, but you don't often get to hear what like myself and Jack do as race directors or organisers, whatever you want to call us, during the event. So now you've got a feel for the race. I'll take you through a little bit about how our race unfolds and how it's, you know, we don't end until the last racer's in. So however tired you are at the finish line, we've still got a few more days to go. It starts with registration day. It's our busiest and probably our most stressful day. Jack and I hand out sweet TransAlba swag, so if you sign up you get a sweet Mazette. Sweet bottles, there's sticker packs and all sorts. I will run through a bike check, we'll hand out trackers, and the idea of this event is really to set the tone for our race. So people are nervous coming in. You know, you're about to undertake a huge race, and it's hard. So we try to, as much as possible, settle people's nerves and get to know people and learn everybody's names, which we are awful at, and I will touch on that later on. And we get you some coffee and some pizza. It's a nice event. Jack takes some photos, and we take little Polaroids of every single rider. And again, because we struggle to learn everybody's names and we're terrible at it, we have this little cheat sheet as we go through day by day. And I will come on to a story on that. And then there's a safety briefing. Look at this guy just holding the tension of a room perfectly. What a goddamn hero. He's doing a safety briefing, which is really dull, but everyone's polite at the end. It's like, oh, that was great, Chris, thanks. I'm like, oh. We, along with the setup and close down, we then get ourselves ready for race day. And race day comes, and this guy here leads out the riders for the first 20, 30 miles or so. We ride at a nice steady 12 to 13 miles an hour. This is key for us because it allows us to settle everyone's nerves in the first few hours of the race. And if people like Jack, who arrive late to the start, I'm calling you out, putting you on blast, Jack. You know, it allows them to catch up. I think he had a puncture, genuinely, so please don't hold it against him. We often find that the fast guys, the guys that are going to blast the race, like Callum, who's sitting in the audience tonight, these guys aren't that nervous. They're just waiting to get let off the leash so they can just blast past everyone and destroy everybody. And then the guys at the back of the pack, the really slow guys, and I say really slow, they're doing 100 miles a day. It's harsh to call them slow, but they are the slower guys. They tend not to be that nervous because they know exactly, this is my plan, I'm doing 100 miles, I'm sticking to it, that's it. I know where I'm staying, I know where I'm sleeping. But it's the middle pack, the little party zone where people don't know what they're going to get. They're going to do 200 miles one day, and then they're going to do 55 miles the next day. And it's going to be really hit and miss in there. Those guys are a bag of nerves, so we'll drop back, we'll relax them, we'll calm them down. And by the time you're on the bike, you forget about everything else. And this is the easy part. This is the part they remember what to do. So this was from last year's race. Everyone heading off from the Parliament. And then I said we'd come back to the best mascot in the business. This is my wee boy, his name's Alexander. He wanted to come tonight, but he wouldn't have made it, and he would have been an absolute maniac running around everywhere. And he wanted to bring the unicorn mascot head as well, which I was like, no, you cannot bring that. I've got a little video of race day here, so here we go.
You got a little dance for us?
He refused to do a dance. I wonder why. Is it heavy? I'll take. You gonna be the mascot today? Yeah? You gonna do some dancing? Okay? No? You're officially the TransAlba mascot. I'm surprised you can actually see it. Like, let's go! Go get it, Smell Dog! There it is. How you feeling? Good man. Have fun. There you are. Good, how you feel?
Oh, no.
Wonderful. Fast. Like I say, we don't take ourselves too seriously. Day one for us is we try to hit certain mile markers, and we try to see every single rider 2 or 3 times on the first day. One of our big things for us is that we want to get one photo of every person, a kind of a hero photo, a cool photo of somebody like on their bike, so that even if they scratch on day one, and there are people that do, they've got one photo to go home with, that they look amazing on their bike. Usually for this day, this is kind of our main stressor, that we're running around trying to make sure that we get a picture of everybody and try to put a name to the face, because as soon as people put helmets on, then we don't recognise them from the registration day. So for Jack and I, we will be busting up and down the roads, driving up and down, here, there and everywhere with another car with volunteers. And usually we'll do the first kind of 100 miles or so before then heading back to Edinburgh. Our route heads south first and then back up, and you cut through Linlithgow. So it allows us to bed down in Edinburgh for a night, and then we're back on the road the next day. Often we'll see some of the fast guys come through Linlithgow, like we did with Graham Spiller and Callum this year. They were straight through. But it's a very late night and then a very early morning for us the next day. But we're constantly at the side of a road, just hanging around, usually with a mascot head on, filming people. So if you do drive past us, people do get us we do get funny looks from people. But as the race spreads out, we are more and more just waiting 2 or 3 hours at the side of a road doing nothing. And usually the riders stopped further up at a cafe somewhere that we've not spotted. But we try to touch base with everybody. And interestingly, we like I say, we try to remember every single person's name. And in TransAlba 1, I won't use the person's name, but we had a bit of a kind of we'll call them Scott Andrew and Andrew Scott situation. 2 riders with very similar names riding beside each other. So we catch up with this guy and we're like, Scott, how are you? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm doing okay. So we overuse everyone's name, so we remember it. Scott. Use this guy's name 10 times. Cool, set him off on his way. I was like, nice, tick, we've seen Scott. Boom, great. Anyway, Jack's like, oh, we've got another rider coming on. Okay, cool. We'll just sit tight for an hour. Anyway, Scott comes along. All right, guys, did you catch up with Andrew? He's had a fall. And we're like, what? Like, we didn't even know this guy had crashed, and we've called him the wrong name 10 times, and we're just like, right, we need to catch this guy up the road. He was fine, but at the same time, so learning point for us was Polaroids, learn everyone's name. So, and we'll make the same mistake again, I'm sure. You'll see from a lot of the pictures as well, we've got a lot of smiley, happy faces, and our pictures are all in colour and they're bright. It was a clear view of Jack's that he didn't want to go down the route of black and white and sepia photos, and that's not to say that they don't have a place in this sort of riding, and it's not to say that we don't like it. We just felt with our race we wanted to stand out and be a little bit different and be a little bit brighter, and Jack's quote is basically, Scotland's green, so we need to show our pictures being bright and green. So you'll see that we don't do many black and white photos. It's smiley, happy faces, even if the people inside don't feel that way. So, next, I've got a couple of videos back to back. As we move around the course, we head to Oban, which brings us kind of the main bit of the ferries. We have a ferry at Gourock, and then as we get to Oban, we've got 3 ferries after that. Oban's is the 400-mile mark, and we like to see absolutely every single rider through there, just to make sure that they're prepared to go on to the next step. So we'll touch base with everybody, make sure they're doing okay, and make sure they're fit to continue. But Oban's become a bit of a home away from home from us, and we absolutely love being there, and we love seeing the ferries. They add a bit of excitement. As a race director, it backs all the riders up, and it forces people to take breaks. It forces them to sleep. So your guys like Callum and Jack, who are fast, they will ride long and hard, but when they miss a ferry, it's tough. You've got to sleep overnight. You've got to have like 6 hours sleep, right? So it's a nice way of like forcing people to have breaks. But we get to plant our feet in Oban for a couple of days, which is nice. And this is probably the 2 days of the race that are relaxing for Jack and I. We're not doing 6 or 7 or 8 hours of driving, but we're in Oban, soaking up and seeing all of these riders come through. And the next video is a little bit of the guys on the ferries. There's a couple of our wonderful volunteers, Sammy and Alex. Videos. And that's the guys heading on to Mull, but it's quite peaceful, the ferries, and it, like I say, enforces the breaks, which is vital for us, because we can tell people to sleep as much as possible. They're probably going to ignore you and keep going. But it's not all hard work for us. We do get to have a little bit of fun. And this next video is us getting to ride bikes on Mull as well. So this is Hannah, one of our amazing photographers from last year, and she's on board for next year as well.
Chocolate and granola. Is it though? Yeah, I'm questioning it now.
You'll see that we have breakfast on the go quite a lot. Oh, there's the Brompton boys. And there's Jack Driver just doing the drone. Every time he's using the drone, we try to skid in front of him as much as possible just to put him off. So, but after we've kind of been in and around Oban, we're kind of hitting that end of day 3, day 4 mark. And that's the point that we're constantly assessing where riders are. It was a really fast field this year, so at that point, we had to make a decision to split the team, one to go north, and then one to catch up with this chap here, because he was very, very fast, and we lost a day of filming up north. So it's not his fault, he was smashing round. One of our key goals is to see every single rider at the finish line. Now, we can only give 10 days of ourselves to do that. We take annual leave to do this race. And we have to go back to work, so we kind of feel that 100 miles a day is manageable, or that's the sort of entry level we look for. But we've never missed a rider, and we've had a couple come in 14 days. But we have to make sure to get back, and this year we had to get back very, very fast for this chap, like I say. And that's us at the finish line. This is where the tough part for Jack and I start. Whilst riders are coming in, they're coming to the end. Riders will come in at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. They'll sometimes look like they're coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they'll bed down for 6 hours. So Jack and I are sitting at the finish line like this going, is he stopped? Is he stopped by that bush? And you're sitting there going, am I going to drive 40 miles to see if he's stopped? Or are we just going to just kind of lie in bed awake watching the tracker, which is usually what happens. So, but they'll roll in every 2 hours over the course of a few days, and some, like I say, will be 4 and a bit days, and some will be 10 days. But we've never missed a rider, and we hopefully never will. But this was Callum Fisher coming in at the end of the ride, very, very fast. And our second place rider. And then this handsome chap came in third. He's sitting over there. And he's got the famous hip flask. And not many people have those. And we're pretty proud to dish them out at the end. And we do fill them with whiskey. If you drink alcohol, we do ask that question at the start. If you don't, you get Iron Brew in it. It's pretty flat by the end because it travels around the whole of Scotland with us. So we're always prepared. We've got like a bundle of hip flasks in the car, and they eventually fall out the box, just sliding around loose in the van. If we get pulled over, we're going to be in trouble. But yeah, and that hopefully gives you a bit of an overview of a race and a feel for it. The last thing I want to do is just shout out our amazing volunteers that we get every year. Jack with Orange Hat obviously does this with me every year, but Hannah in the middle is one of our photographers. And we've had Alex and Sammy and a gentleman called Campbell Donaldson and a chap that I rode Transamerica with, Aaron, who comes over to help. And without these people, I wouldn't be able to put this on with Jack. And yeah, it's a pretty sweet event, so you should come and ride it. Okay, bye. That was long, eh?
I'm just going to ask a couple of questions before we the audience questions. So what's the application process like, and do you reject any applications?
We reject's a strong word, but we will guide. We'll guide people if they've maybe not got maybe a background in it. Like, this is tough. This is a tough route. Like, we don't make any apologies about that. But if you've not ridden 100 miles before, then you're not going to start doing it on that course, right? And you're not going to do it for 10 days. It's brutal. So we won't reject, but we will guide, and we'll point people towards things like Audax as a way of starting out doing longer distance, where you've got a community and you've got a supportive community that can help guide you and help develop your riding so that you can come and do something like this. So, yeah.
And do you have any riders that keep coming back for more?
We do, yes. You're one. You came and did the shorter version last year. We've got Graham Spiller's been back a couple of times. Rupert Robinson, who's an amazing rider. You will have seen him with, he's got these big long dreadlocks in some of our videos. He's completed it twice fully, once as a pair, once solo, and then he's also done the 400, the shorter one. And he's a granddad just smashing it out, you know. He won the 400 in a day and a bit, so he's a wild man. So we do get a few returning people. I don't know why. It's brutal, so maybe you can answer that question.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Right. Any audience questions now?
They're keen for a coffee.
Here we go.
Oh.
You said you take holidays for it, everyone takes holidays for it. Can you ever see this event or a multiple of events being viable? Would you ever do it for a living? Is that ever an option, do you think?
Possibly. I don't think in this event in particular, we don't want it to be big. We don't want to have 300 riders. I don't want to put 300 riders out onto Scottish roads for 10 days. We can't control that. Even with a bigger team, we can't control that. And we've struggled to learn 60 people's names, so learning 300 people's names is tough. And we like to be part of everyone's journey as well. Now, the fast guys don't want to see us, they just want to truck on. But we like to be part of people's journeys, and we like to help and support and give that 1% or 5% or 13% wherever people need it. Potentially, we would maybe grow it, but I think for now, we've only just managed to really break even last year. Prior to this, I worked in high-level hospitality, so I would just support any losses with my salary. I can't do that anymore, so we have to make it viable, but it is a passion project. It's something I love. It's not something I would stop doing. I would make it happen, but to grow it, I think I don't want to turn it into something I don't want it to be, if that makes sense.
Any more questions?
Oh no, is this why did you make me go up so many hills?
No, I love the hills.
It's just, yeah.
What is your favourite part of the route? And do you think there'll be any changes for next year?
That's a good question. I like lots and lots of parts of the route. I think the stuff in the borders I love, just because that's where I did a lot of my training for TransAmerica, right? So I'm really familiar with that. I love that area. I love getting the ferries and hitting the islands, and then the very northern points as well. Blacknaba, doing the big climb is tough. I'm a big fan of that as well, but probably the borders is my favourite. We did look, second part of the question, we did look at changing the route. We were set to flip it and actually take out the Cairngorms and actually take out the borders and just do a lot more north. But unfortunately, I was hit by a car. Somebody cycled into a cycle lane as I was riding 3 months ago, so I've not been back on a bike to do the recon and to ride it properly. So I think we will stick with what we have for now, with a few small tweaks, get rid of some of the bits that shouldn't be in there, and go from that. But I would like to reverse the route again. So whether we do that this year, who knows? It's in the back of my mind.
I don't think we have to go to dance again, down and back. What's with that?
It's really good for us to film though, because
I know.
I like the climb there as well, but it's really good for us to film, and it's really good to check up on people within that first 80 miles, right? We get to see people at quite a few points, so whilst we need to hit 1,000 miles, right? That's what I want to hit. Yes, the out and back breaks you because you're like, why am I going south just to come back north again? But it does serve a purpose for us, not only for safety because we can check in on people, but also for filming and getting those hero pictures. So, and also if people do have major mechanicals, they're on their way back to Edinburgh, they can dip into Edinburgh and then back out onto the route as well. So it serves a few points, but yeah, a lot of people do complain about it, so I don't apologise.
And I remember Angus Doig was telling me that don't underestimate the first 200 miles. It is hilly. I was like, I know the borders, I know everything. It's like, I'll be fine. I was like, oh my God.
It's hard, right? Yeah, we start off hard, and we did it, the first year we did it, we put everyone straight into the Cairngorms. And we had about like 50 scratches on day one. And I was like, oh no, there's not going to be any riders left. And the weather was brutal that year as well. So I think the year you did the full route, you just had the wind in your face and rain for the whole first 2 days as well. So yeah, it's hard. You've got to earn that hip flask.
Right. So thanks again, Chris.
You're
it was
welcome.
very good. So make sure you sign up. The entries are open.
I've already put everybody off, I think.
And yet, you will get all these amazing pictures. And to be honest, one of the main reasons I did it was to have the pictures. Seriously, really. Because none of my cycling friends actually take photos. If they do, they're terrible. So, there you go. There you can get the photos. Yes, so we'll have a bit intermission now, but also those things, if you see, so in your seats, that it's nothing dodgy, it's Odaxe Coast rides. The organizer of the Neil Wallace is here. Show yourself, Neil. If you have any questions about the rides from 5, they are not as dodgy as they sound. Just go and speak to Neil. Next year, from 200 to 600 kilometers, rides from 5. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.